Okay, good afternoon. Welcome to the Hillsborough TPO ITS committee meeting held on a quarterly basis. Hope everyone's having a really good afternoon. My name is Margaret Kubelins and I'm the chair of this committee. And I am from the city of Tampa. So why don't we call this meeting to order? And then do we need introductions of?
I think Cheryl will be doing that. I can
call.
yeah, the roll call vote. So that can count as introductions.
Okay, great. Cheryl, would you go ahead and start the roll call?
Sure. Margaret Kubelins,
Here.
Bob Campbell,
Here.
Brian McCarthy,
Here.
Pauline Castillo,
Here.
Dexter Corbin,
Here.
Jeff Sims,
Here.
Achilles Cochalis,
Here.
and Anna Canones is excused today. We do have an in-person quorum. Chair, can you please call for a vote of consent for remote member participation?
Yes, I'd like to call for a vote of consent for remote member participation.
Second.
We have a second from Dexter. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None being heard, the motion passes.
Thank you.
Do we have any members that are that have called in virtually? I know we have a quorum.
Ed Albritton from District 7 is here.
Welcome, Ed. Okay, continuing along with introductions, I'd like to introduce Brian Zayas. Is that how you say it? Zayas?
Yeah, it's okay. Silent.
Okay, Zayas. Thank you for the correction. Brian Gentry has left the county, and so he has a new position. Some of you may have already heard from him and so on, but you know, we all shift at some points, different phases of life. So Brian has been is being introduced. Maybe you should explain who you are, what your role is at the county, please.
Yes, so Brian Zayas, I am working within the Traffic Management Center as a network architect. I joined the county a year ago, exactly. And it's been fun so far. I mean, we have a very nice team, some of which are here present today.
And then, so you're being offered as becoming a member to our to the committee.
Yes,
So you'll be the primary representative for the county, and then Bob Campbell will remain the alternate.
correct.
So that's in process, just so everybody knows that that's what we move forward with. Okay. Okay. Public comment. Do we have anyone from the audience? Anyone from the public? You have 3 minutes to speak if you have something to offer. Carlton wants to say something. You can't sit in the back and smile like that and not get my attention. That's fine. Okay, so with no public comment coming forward, we can move on to the review and approval of the minutes from January 5th. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, any comments, feedback, corrections? No? Okay, with that, do I have a motion to approve the minutes as presented for the January 5th meeting? Motion approved. Pauline makes a motion to approve the minutes as presented. May I have a second?
Second.
Kelly's seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None being heard, the motion passes to approve the minutes as presented. Okay, action items. The TIP amendment for West Boy Scout Boulevard and US 301, traffic signalization and intersection improvements. Is Roger's up and ready to present. Thank you, Roger.
Good afternoon, ITS members. My name is Ryan Matthew. I'm with Hillsborough TPO.
Do you need the presentation? It's actually, so can you see if that screen has the access?
I don't know which one it is.
Right, do you want me to advance the slides?
Yeah, if you want to. Sure. Sorry, guys.
Good.
It never works the way you practice.
Right.
I know you had it right.
I know, but Good.
Okay, cool. All right, let's begin again. ITS members, good afternoon. I'm Roger Matthew, TPO staff. Today I'm presenting you an overview of the TIP amendment that will impact projects on West Boy Scout Boulevard in the West Shore District and a segment of US 301 in Hillsborough County near Thenona-Sassa. Both projects will involve traffic signal or signalization and intersection improvements. Next slide. All right, so this TIP amendment is being requested by FDOT to add funds and to secure federal authorization from FHWA and approve the fiscal year 24 funding prior to the letting date of November 15, 2023. The intersection of West Boy Scout Boulevard and Manhattan Avenue is currently the top safety priority listed in the TIP. TPO has been working with FDOT, City of Tampa, and West Shore Alliance for several years to secure funding for this project because in just the past 5 years, there have been over 100 total crashes at this intersection, 8 of them being severe and/or fatal. The funds will be used for construction to signalize the intersection, stripe it, add new lighting, new pedestrian crossings. So when completed, it will greatly enhance the safety of the intersection and improve traffic flow. The new signals will also allow for emergency vehicle preemption to accommodate responses from the fire station located in the southeast corner of this intersection. Next slide. And here we're showing the additional nearly $1.5 million in construction funds for fiscal year 24. And the next amendment is a corridor along US 301, very similar to the one on Boy Scout Boulevard, and will include the signalization of 3 intersections at Harney Road, Stacy Road, and McIntosh Road. These 3 intersections are also some of the top safety priorities identified in the TIP priority lists. The current TIP, they're the 8th highest ranking safety projects. The funds will allow for new signals, new lighting, new pedestrian crossings, and restripe to allow for safer traffic flow. The intersections at Stacy Road and McIntosh Road will also allow for safer access to the Old 14 Trail. Slide. Here we're showing the addition of more than $3.5 million in funds for fiscal year 24. Slide. And as part of our public outreach, our required public engagement activities in March, we published a newsletter describing the amendments. We published informational flyers on social media, published a webpage, and posted signs in the ground near the affected projects. Next slide. And today we are recommending you approve the TIP amendment and forward to the TPO board for approval. That's all I have today. Any questions?
I have a quick question. So when approved by the board, do you guys have any rough dates on start, construction start?
Once the letting date happens, they'll open the bids and it will be fiscal year 24. I don't have any date yet. Right.
Okay, any other questions? This
Do
is
you-
our best opportunity.
I was going to ask if you know if, since the other intersection is so close, like quarter mile, Lois will be 14 and over or no?
No, just these intersections here.
Wait, what was the question? So on
If-
Boy Scout, it's so close to Lois?
Lois, right? So the next intersection over, it's like really close. So I was wondering if it's going to be for signals.
It
are gonna
will be,
coordinators, yeah?
absolutely.
Oh, you mean the syncing of the lights?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, the signal timing would be coordinated along Boy Scout, yes.
Okay, sorry, I misunderstood you.
Pardon?
Is that a city road?
It is not a city road, it's a state road. Boy Scout's a state road, but the city does the signal timing maintenance, or they do the signal maintenance, but then they have a consultant that does the signal timing along that corridor.
I also have a question, just out of curiosity, how are you guys, I guess, helping with the fire station signalization? Is that going to be just like a separate light a little bit off of the actual streetlights?
I think they have technology to control the traffic signals once they pull out of the fire station.
Yeah, but like a red light would, it would back up everyone in their lane to get out, right? So,
Right.
No, okay, so the design, I just so happened to look at the
Okay,
design previously, so I do have understanding of it. It will include fire preemption.
okay,
So the station will have the fire preemption, and then it will stop vehicles, but it also, as part of the preemption, it'll flush the route where
okay,
the fire trucks need to go out. So
Okay.
anyone that's lingering there, they'll get flushed out with the green light,
perfect,
and then no one else will be moving, and then the fire truck goes.
perfect.
Yeah. Absolutely, very good question.
That's something we learn too.
Pardon?
That's something we learn too. Thank you.
Sure. Anyone else?
One more.
Yeah.
For the Harney and US 301, does like DOT evaluate it from like a roundabout, or why is the signal, I guess, the preferred alternative?
I don't have the plans in front of me of what they're doing at the intersection, but what I understand, the intersection will be blown up a little bit bigger, restriped it for the pedestrian crossings, because I believe there's only 1 or 2 in that area right now. So there should be 4.
Is anyone here consultant for DOT? I was familiar, actually, when I was consultant, that was required. So there was always, in the planning of an intersection improvement, it was always required to look at a roundabout as a possibility, is one of the potential traffic control measures in order to support the traffic movements there. There's multiple reasons why you would want to choose one layout versus another. And then, so there are other intersection treatments that they could. It's called ICE, but I don't remember what it's called. Bob, do you remember what that's all called? When they have to go through the whole sequence?
It's what you just said.
Okay. But they can't just jump straight to, oh, we're going to signalize it. There is a screening process, which is what they actually did with Boy Scout in Manhattan. They had multiple versions or alternatives that they evaluated during the, I don't know if it's PD&E or just the preliminary screening. Any other questions? Okay, so for right now, or right before us, we have a request to approve the TIP amendment, which will support the movement of funds. We're dedicating the funds to Boy Scout Boulevard and then US 301. So that's 4 traffic signals, and it looks like it was almost $5 million. Is that right? Okay.
Like a motion to support.
Bob Campbell's making a recommendation or putting in a motion to approve the TIP amendment. Do we have a second?
Brian McCarthy seconds.
Cheryl, you get that?
No, who was the second?
Brian
Brian.
McCarthy,
Thank you.
you're welcome. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None being heard, the motion passes. Thank you. Thank you, Roger.
Thank you.
The second action item that we have is performance targets for pavement and bridge condition and travel time reliability. So Connor is going to present for us.
Yes, good afternoon. Let me move the screen that's being shared.
Yes, we see your screen.
Okay.
Is that USF pool?
Yeah.
Yes.
There we go. So you should see the presentation now, I believe.
Yes, we do.
Perfect. Connor McDonald, CPO staff, here to present 2 performance measures, one being bridge condition, pavement bridge condition, and the other being travel time reliability. I imagine that many of your interest is probably more in the travel time reliability, so I'll focus more on there. But there are 2 required measures under the required of MPOs under the FAST Act and MAP 21 legislation. And they're due 180 days after the state sets its targets, so that for us would be June 14th of this year. Under pavement and bridge condition, there are 4 metrics: percentage of pavements on the interstate system in good condition and poor condition, percentage of pavements on the non-interstate national highway system in good and poor condition. And some examples of those are like Nebraska Avenue, Florida Avenue, state-owned roads that are not interstates. And then we have percentage of NHS bridges by deck area in good condition and poor condition. So the data used to calculate pavement condition is dependent on the type of pavement, whether it be asphalt, jointed concrete pavement, or continuously reinforced concrete pavement. And for bridge condition, it's calculated using National Bridge Inventory data. And it's important here to note that bridge condition score does not equal the safety of the structure. If a structure is deemed unsafe, action will be immediately taken by FDOT to remedy the situation. All right. So the previous board action was to support FDOT's targets for pavement and bridge condition. And the TPO also elected to submit a letter to FDOT appreciating the level of investment on bridge and pavement condition and asked District 7 to continue that investment. So here we're showing the proportion of lane miles by maintaining agency. So we're talking about that 17% owned by FDOT. This is how we did for those state targets originally set in 2018. For interstate pavements in good condition, poor condition, and NHS and poor, we met those targets significantly. We also met the target for non-interstate NHS pavements in good condition. We're recommending to keep those state targets, which are the same for this cycle. This slide shows the percentage of bridges. So we're talking about that 50% owned by FDOT. We also did pretty well here, percent of NHS bridges in good condition. We met that target of 50% being at 78%, and percent of NHS bridges by deck area in poor condition being less than or equal to 10%. We met that target at 3.4%. So there are a few tip projects that aim to increase pavement and bridge condition, including resurfacing Southdale, Mabry, and Bush Boulevard, the new Howard Franklin Bridge, as well as various other pavement and resurfacing repairs. So these will allow us to keep those good conditions. And the next performance measure, which I mentioned you may be more interested in this committee, is travel time reliability, which is of course the dependability in travel times. So just kind of getting in a little bit more, most travelers are less tolerant of unexpected delays because they can cause travelers to be late for work from important meetings, miss appointments, or incur extra childcare fees. So we're measuring the dependability in travel times as measured from day to day. High reliability would mean that your travel time is consistent over a specified period, and low reliability would mean that your travel time varies considerably over a specified period. So how is it measured? For interstate reliability and non-interstate NHS reliability, they're measured as percentages, so the closer to 100%, the better. They compare longer travel times to normal travel times, factor in occupancy, and convert this to a percentage of total miles. Truck travel time reliability is measured as a ratio of longer travel time to normal travel time. So as the ratio, the lower score, the better. So here's how we did on travel time reliability TTR. 2020 saw an increase, but for Hillsborough, that percentage is expected to go down, as you see in the forecast. Considering this, and though we expect some new projects to come online, meaning that they've seen construction and we're now beginning to see the results, we're recommending a target of the most recent year's performance being 65.6%. For non-interstate NHS TTR, we saw an upward trend until 2022, while the trend line shows us going upwards with data anomalies from the pandemic, while again recognizing that some projects will come online, meaning that they've seen construction. We're also recommending a target in the most recent year's performance here, being 90.1%. For truck travel time reliability, you can see that Hillsboro's ratio is higher than the state average, meaning that our NHS roads are less reliable for trucks. In 2022, this ratio increased, but the trend is expected to go down. We're recommending the most recent year's performance here as the target as well, meaning 1.94%. So here are the targets set for 2022. In 2018, the TPO set its own targets that were different than the state's. That's because reliability was and is still trending downward across Hillsborough County, and also projects programmed were not expected to see the results of those until recently. However, we do have some that we're beginning to see the results. So again, we're recommending to set our own targets, being the most recent year's performance. So here are those few projects, or here's a few of those projects that have seen construction and we're hoping to see the results of. ATMS projects on Kennedy, Hyde Park, and Del Mabry, University area, downtown and Del Mabry, from Sly to Van Dyke. And of course, ATMS meaning Advanced Traffic Management Systems, which many of you are familiar with, dynamic messaging, camera systems, and among others that assist the Traffic Management Center. So here you can see that performance in a different format. We're recommending you set the targets the most recent year's performance, 60 for interstate reliability, greater than or equal to 65.6%, non-interstate NHS reliability, greater than or equal to 90.1%, and truck travel time reliability, less than or equal to 1.94. So the recommended action today is to approve supporting the statewide targets for pavement and bridge condition and transmitting that same letter to APDOT, requesting that NHS pavements and bridges continue to be maintained in a condition exceeding the statewide target, and also approve establishing the Hillsborough specific travel time reliability targets. And with that, I'll take any comments or questions, and I'll go back to the recommended action slide.
All right, Connor, thank you very much for the information. Anyone have any comments or questions? Points of clarification? None? Okay. So as a committee, do we want to make a recommendation to approve supporting the statewide pavement and bridge condition targets, and then approve establishing the Hillsborough specific travel time reliability targets? Do you have a motion? I'll make a motion to approve the pavement, bridge conditions, and establishing the Hillsborough specific travel time reliability targets. Do I have a second? Achilles?
Second, I just have also a clarification, I guess.
Pardon?
I have a clarification question too.
Oh, clarification question, Connor?
For
Go
the
ahead.
Absolutely.
So for the travel time reliability, are we talking about adding in as an additional measure or replacing any?
So the three targets, the three metrics, for those are all required of MPOs. So we're not doing any ones that are elected by the MPO or its staff. These are all required, but by specific, we're recommending to set targets that are specific to Hillsborough and not adopting the state's targets for those.
I have a question.
Yes, Brian.
So,
Sias.
yes, Brian Sias from Hillsborough County. You mentioned some anomalies based on were affected by the pandemic.
Yes.
So how do you expect that to change now that we don't have the pandemic? So is it going to be on the other side of the trend, or?
So I believe that one was, if I can go back, let's see,
That would be
where I mentioned non-interstate NHS travel time reliability. So these percentages are high, especially in 2020 and 2022, like through that area. So what the state has done is they've set a target at about like 50%. And when we asked, if the numbers are higher than that, why would that target be so low? And they explained that there was data anomalies from the pandemic, meaning that it was just people weren't driving as much. So they just were not as reliant on that data. And so they went with the 50%. Here, we're just recommending that performance of 2022, again, considering that those projects we're going to see the results of. So we're recommending that target at 90.1%, whereas the state's target was about like 50%. And that's how they explained that it was a little less reliable because of the pandemic data.
Thank you.
Of course.
I have one question too.
Go ahead.
Connor, for the interstate travel time reliability slide,
Yes.
out of the three of them, this is the only one where the county is trending downward while the state is trending upward. What's the difference there?
I'll be honest, I'm not familiar with a good explanation on why our interstate systems would be trending downwards. I'm sure there's lots of reasons we could come up with, but to be honest, I don't have a direct answer for you, but I can look into that.
So Connor, the actual data that you have, because you did say that, unless you mean for the dashed lines there, destination, everything else is actual data. Is that right?
Right. So we get this data from a platform that I forget what the office is called, but an office in Tallahassee, and they could go through a consultant data platform, which I think is like Iteris. So we have access to that data platform, and we pull it from there. And so how we've used this forecast is just from those numbers that you see, like dragging out the trend line in Excel, and that's where the trend line is headed.
I mean, I have to say that based on our involvement with some stuff too, from 2020 to even now, is still not, like FDOT said, it's still not reliable data because of COVID-related issues. So I don't know if these numbers are going to hold. I mean, probably going to leave down. So.
Right, and that's exactly why we are recommending to keep that previous year's performance at 65.6%, just because we know that with those anomalies, with the pandemic, it's not as reliable as, like, the data is not as reliable as we would hope, but also recognizing that we have several projects, ITS related, smart cities related, that we're seeing the results of. So hopefully, the results of those projects will actually increase it, but we're not 100% positive, so we're recommending just to keep it where it is. I hope that clarifies.
So sorry, one more question. When you go to how is TTR measured, and you're talking about vehicle occupancy is factored in to determine the person miles traveled, can you just go a little bit more into detail on that for me? Because that would probably help me understand how COVID is making the number go up.
So, of course, it's the reliability. So it's not exactly the measure of congestion. It's if there's congestion, is it reliable congestion, essentially? I'll be honest, I'm not as familiar with how, like, the specific formulas or anything that FDOT calculates. What we receive are those exact percentages, and then explained to us in this same way. So I don't know how they collect the vehicle occupancy, how they are sure of that, but that helps. That is factored in. I know that's not an exact answer, but I can look more into the specific calculations and follow up.
So I'm sorry if this sounds silly, but vehicle occupancy being the people in the vehicles, they're counting the people in the vehicles. So during COVID, you wouldn't be share riding as much, right?
Right.
So more vehicles on, okay. Yeah, I'm just, because if you look at the truck travel time, it went down during COVID, but that would make sense, right? Because there's less cars on the road. You're not really sharing your trucks versus vehicles.
Right.
They wouldn't have anyway.
Right. So, okay. It's making a little bit more sense now.
More questions, clarifications? Very good, thank you. There's still a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Brian McCarthy, second.
Brian McCarthy, seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None being heard, the motion passes.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, now we're moving on to status reports. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we have 4 status reports. The first one is the Regional Resiliency Action Plan. Kara Woods. You want me to just present from here?
Yeah, I need to show this. I have the presentation input for you if you want. And I can run the slides for you.
Sure, I'll just want to run them for me. That'll be perfect. Thank you. So good afternoon. My name is Kara Woods-Sarah. I'm with the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council, and I'm a resiliency planner with the council. Been there about 4 years, and I work with the hazard mitigation program. I've done some local mitigation strategies for member governments, and we're currently working on we just adopted our regional resiliency action plan, and it's the first regional action plan for resiliency for our region. Can you go to the next slide, please? So just if you're not familiar with the Regional Planning Council, this is our mission statement. I won't read it word for word for you, but we're a 6-county region going from Citrus County in the north down to Manatee County in the south and over to Hillsborough County, obviously. We also have a regional resiliency coalition, which was founded in 2018. And the Regional Resiliency Coalition has 7 counties. We also have Sarasota County in our coalition, and we're up to 33 member governments in our Regional Resiliency Coalition. Next slide, please. So you can see our 6-county region here. Next slide, thank you. Our 7-county Resiliency Coalition. We also have over 100 private sector partners. So the Florida Aquarium can join as a partner, Duke Energy, the Rays, any private sector agency that wants to join as a partner is welcome to join as well. And then they can help us with work groups or the development of the action plan or any resources that we develop in our member governments. We're the second collaborative. We're the second collaborative focusing on climate resiliency in the state of Florida, and we're the 18th in the country. When we founded the Regional Resiliency Coalition for the Tampa Bay region, it was founded by MOU. So the original governments who signed on by MOU agreed to work together on climate resiliency, and they specifically called for an action plan to be developed to guide the work that the collaborative would do, the coalition would do from that point on. And that MOU also requires that that action plan and anything that we do for the coalition be based in sound science. Next slide, please. So this is the front page of our action plan. It was adopted in November of last year. It's totally voluntary for our member governments. So Hillsborough County is a member government, as our city of Tampa and Plant City just joined, I believe, in January or February, I can't remember. So Plant City is our newest member. The action plan really prioritizes regional collaboration, so we think it's a good opportunity to guide us on what we're going to do together. So how does Hillsborough County work with Pinellas County and all of the jurisdictions, and how do we work across different types of geographies? Like Pinellas is really urban, Citrus County is more rural. How do we work together, even though we're also different, on kind of moving the needle on climate resiliency?
It also identifies in the action plan things that our local governments can do. So maybe there are some best practices that really make more sense at the local government level. So maybe vehicle electrification or adopting land development codes or comprehensive plan policies. Those make more sense at the local government level. And these are just a collection of best practices in regional resiliency action. Again, it's all voluntary. If a local government wants to take some parts of the action plan and run with them, then that's totally up to them. They don't have to do anything that's in this action plan just because they're members of the coalition, or even if they choose to adopt the regional resiliency action plan by resolution. The action plan integrates sustainability throughout the project. It's also it integrates equity throughout the entire plan. Slide, please. So again, it's a menu of actions. Nothing here has to be done by any specific local government. We really want to do as much of the regional actions as we can together. But once we get down to those local actions, we're not trying to be completely prescriptive. We just collected some best practices that our local governments might consider based on where they are, their budgets, their staff capacity, their geography. Next slide, please. So this also identifies opportunities for regional, state, and federal agency partnerships. And again, at the highest level is the regional collaboration. Slide. So to develop a plan, we work with a lot of our regional subject matter experts, the Tampa Bay Estuary Program, University of Florida Extension, TBARDA, USF Cutter, Army Corps of Engineers, the U.S. Green Building Council, and so on. Next slide. So I know this is hard to see, but these were the sort of interest areas that we heard from our member governments, our elected officials, the private sector. What would you want to see in an action plan for climate resiliency for Tampa Bay? And so we tried to just kind of crosswalk this so you can see that we did try to address everything that we heard interest in the plan. So if maybe you're interested in environmental habitat conservation, you can see that you'll find some actions in chapters 2 and 4. Next slide. So there's 10 goals. I won't read them word for word, but the first goal really focuses on data. So making sure that we're pulling the most relevant, but also the most updated data. We're talking about sea level rise projections especially. The second goal is really related to vulnerability assessments. We obviously encourage vulnerability assessments for all of our local governments, and now the state is encouraging that as well. The third goal is really thinking about building your internal capacity, empowering residents to start doing their own resiliency work, but also making sure that all of the departments in your organization are thinking about resiliency, so from waste management to human resources. The fourth one is our land use sort of goal. It also talks about housing and construction resiliency. And then our next goal is focused on habitats and wildlife, followed by a goal on public infrastructure and the services we provide to our residents. Then our multimodal transportation goal, food systems resiliency, business preparedness in the face of an extreme weather event, and then finally, basically economic preparedness. So how do we get the workforce skills we need to be able to adapt to the changing climate? Next slide. So I'll just go through these kind of quickly, but these are our 11 priority actions. And I moved to the transportation actions to the top because I figured those were the ones most we care about. But these 11 priority actions are actions that we want to work on together. So our member governments, our private sector partners, subject matter experts, we really want to focus on what's in these next few slides. So the top one, the plan was adopted in November of 2022. So there's obviously an agency there that won't be participating, but We want to provide a forum for talking about transportation, greenhouse gas emission reductions, but also how we use transportation as a tool for resiliency. And then we want to prioritize electric vehicle infrastructure. So where there are opportunities for shared infrastructure between two jurisdictions, sorry, we want to make sure that we kind of leverage those opportunities. Next slide. So we also have a high priority goal of developing a food systems plan for the region so that we know where there are shortcomings in our regional food systems. A lot of you might remember after Irma, we really didn't have access to a lot of fresh food. So could we make that process better? And then also food waste reduction is a good way of kind of lowering emissions for member government. And then we're calling this industry clusters, but essentially, how do we get our workforce better prepared to do the adaptation projects we need to account for the sea level rise projections that we're seeing. Next slide. So reducing flood risks, so we want to collect best practices for flood risk reduction, especially through stormwater innovations. We would most likely want to work with some professional engineers in that capacity, and then we'll also be convening a stormwater and infrastructure group to sort of start thinking about best practices and what should we be doing as our baseline for the region. Next slide. So these two are related to communications and sort of neighborhood capacity, and it's really thinking about how we can empower our residents to do some of the resiliency work, and then how do we talk to our residents about the risks. Next slide. So these are our habitat goals. We've already adopted at the council level a shoreline, model shoreline ordinance template, which suggests that seawalls should be a minimum of 5 feet for our region. And it also makes recommendations for a hybrid and natural shorelines. And then we have another action goal here to develop policies and management strategies to encourage the restoration of 3,000 acres of wetlands and uplands. Next slide. These are our land use and housing goals. We've already started this regional resilience land use and building design working group. We had our first meeting, I think, last month, and that working group is really interested in thinking about sort of post-disaster resiliency and how do we get people out of out of high-risk areas and into low-risk areas. And then we also know that there's a need for more affordable housing. So how do we convene housing agencies and start to think about this stuff? So we found through some of our past projects that a lot of the housing agencies aren't really thinking about resiliency yet. So we want to make sure that they're at the table for these discussions. Next slide. All right, thank you all for letting me speak, and I'm happy to answer any questions about the regional resiliency action. Is that our coalition?
I had a quick question. I know you mentioned it was 100% voluntary. Do you guys get any funding or?
So it's voluntary to adopt the plan. We are funded by basically dues from the member governments of the regional planning.
Okay.
Regional Planning Council, sorry.
Okay.
And we are also funded by a lot of grants right now. So we have funding from FDP, the Department of Defense.
Yeah. So how do we get onto like any of your committees? I know chapter 4 was like transportation and stuff like that. I'm with HART. How can we get onto some of your resilience committees or?
Yeah, right now our active committees are the land use committee and our clean energy committee, and that's just because of our staffing.
Yeah.
We can definitely start the transportation convening committee if we have interest in it.
Okay.
And especially if we want to volunteer any time to that. But I expect that would start in the summer. We have a sign up page on our website. It's tbrpc.org. resiliency partners, I believe. I can send it out to, his colleges.
Okay, perfect. Awesome, thank you.
So, Kara, it is, I know resilience services to build up resiliency to be able to withhold or withstand the impact of the storms, but I didn't see, so all the counties that you showed, they're all coastal, right? And I assume that in the case we do have hurricane, many migrations will be towards the inner counties in Florida, but I didn't see any on the map there. So I wonder if there's any thoughts to collaborate with them, because obviously there will be movement of people that way, but I don't know if that's part of your goals or not.
So for our region, most of our counties don't have a shelter deficiency. So technically, I think with the exception of Pinellas, technically, most of our residents could shelter within the region. And then we have looked at, through our Safe Shelter project, how the shelters that we have today would be impacted by sea level rise projections going forward, as well as population projections. We know that the population is exploding right now. So we do feel like there is a deficit in the future. And we encouraged through that project our emergency managers to start thinking about how they could go outside of the school system to work with maybe universities or other facilities that they could use for sheltering purposes, where there might be higher ground shelters. Pasco County has a regional shelter, which obviously would mean that they wouldn't just be sheltering people in the county, but I think the state like emergency management office also works on how we shelter in the state versus just within our region.
I have a question. Since everything's voluntary, how do you encourage the different regions to, I guess, go through with the goals? Is there any support in helping, like, I guess, public outreach to make sure the public is also on board in implementing those goals?
So there's currently, we just did a workshop in January with NOAA. They came down and helped train some of our local government staff and anyone who was interested really on communicating risk. So some of our member government staff have actually got trained up on talking about risk. Then we hope to continue that effort. So in around June, I think, NOAA will say, thanks to the staff who got trained up. How's that been working out for you? Have you gone out into the community and used what you've learned? And then from there, we're hoping to have another working group of communications, or resiliency communications. So how do we build on what we learned in that workshop? Maybe you're already working in a community and you build on that knowledge, and then maybe you're not working in a community and you're just starting from scratch. So what are some messages that we can use regionally so that we're consistent? And then I think, especially thinking about post-Ian, how do we communicate preparedness and make sure that, especially with like higher building standards, that people don't get a false sense of security just because they built their house up, like there's still going to be water.
I noticed on one of your slides, you talk about developing a regional electric vehicle master plan. And I know Hillsborough TPO is spearheading an EV infrastructure plan for the county. Has any of the other neighboring counties started something similar?
That I've heard from, and we would hope to partner with, talk with the USF Cutter Center to kind of develop that idea. So I haven't heard that other counties would be doing that, but that would, the Hillsborough County EV master plan would be like a good jumping off point. And then from there, we could see if there's any facilities that are near Pasco County or near Manatee County where there might be an option for a shared facility that, potentially give us more infrastructure, but also the ability to share infrastructure.
I think there might be, does FDOT have something? Does District 7 or from the central office maybe? There's a regional.
Yeah, the central office has a statewide electric vehicle master plan. And so that was modeled after that to make a more regionalized version of
Okay. Makes sense. It'd be harsh to be evacuating and
Yeah.
not be able to make it all the way out of the state. You're idling too long. Something to think about, certainly. Okay, any other questions? Thank you very much. Very interesting. Glad to know that that's planning at the regional level is occurring. Okay, our next status report is connected vehicle pilot results. Bob Fry's on from Thea.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Bob Fry. I'm the planning director over at Thea. And we just wanted to talk a little bit about our connected vehicle pilot that finished up in September of 22. So I'm going to move on to the next slide and we'll talk a little bit about what it is and what we found. CV pilot actually had two phases. The first phase 1 through 3 was September 2015 through 2020. And then the second phase, we actually were successful enough in phases 1 through 3 that USDOT granted us an extension with more funding to work, and we worked with Honda, Hyundai, and Toyota on how the auto manufacturers' connected technology could work with a road operator. Next slide. The pilot study area was the downtown at the end of the reversible lane, and as you can see from the pink curve area, that was on use case 1, which is morning backups. Anybody who's driven in from Brandon area knows that how far it backs up to come there at Twiggs and Meridian. And then we also did wrong way entry, pedestrian safety, which was over at the courthouse, and we installed LiDAR and then later on camera analytics to put out connected warnings to drivers upstream and downstream when pedestrians enter the crosswalk. We worked also with on transit signal priority as well as transit safety, which was, for example, vehicle turning right, making a right in front of a transit vehicle, it would warn the transit bus driver, and that was with HART. We also equipped the streetcars, which, believe it or not, there are more potential streetcar conflicts than people would imagine, that people trying to cut in front of a streetcar, and we giving warnings to the drivers and to the people if they were connected. And then we worked on traffic progression, and finally over-the-air updates on how do you update. The technology and the software and firmware is changing so quickly. How do you update it and keep it up to date without having to have people come in constantly and connect to, make it very difficult where they're not going to be able to do it. So we actually created where we were able to do over-the-air updates where people driving in and out of town, their software and firmware would automatically update based on going through 4 roadside units that we had set up on the REL. And then finally on phase 4, we added red light violation warning, which was interesting because that was a Honda Toyota application that we added, and then they added several of ours into their suite of applications. So this was a very collaborative effort. And I want to say one thing on this and that I haven't mentioned before. This project probably gave me the most hope that we're going to solve safety problems, because I watched Honda, Hyundai, Toyota, Denso, other companies work with us, put aside proprietary issues and help each other out working on safety, on trying to get each other's applications to work and making them interoperable and teach it, giving applications to each other. It was probably the most collaborative project I've seen in 30 years working in the transportation industry. I was very pleased to see that, and it was really nice to see that safety does mean more than just whether or not something is proprietary or not. And that's something that sometimes doesn't get said and people don't hear about, but I wanted to put that out there. Next slide. So just to give you an idea, this of all the committees we're presenting to, this committee probably understand and see the value of this the most. We put out 3.1 billion basic safety messages, and the near real-time database, 26.4 signal SPAT messages, 3.4 million MAP messages, 71.9 traveler information messages, and over 150,000 interactions between OBU-equipped vehicles. The amount of data and electronic signals being passed between vehicles and infrastructure, it's really mind-boggling, the numbers when we start getting into it. And as we're moving forward, newer technologies coming about with edge computing and things along those lines, that's allowing us to manage it better. That's one of the great things about humans, I guess, is when we find problems, we are very good at trying to figure out solutions to them. And as we're moving forward, we seem to be finding more and more different ways to do the analysis closer to where the data is being generated, as opposed to bringing it in-house, doing all the crunching and putting it back out, which creates storage issues and other issues. And that was something that we noticed from 2015 to 2022 that as it evolved. Next slide, please. I'm going to turn it over now. Dr. Cecilio Conkas from Qatar is here from University of South Florida, and he was in charge of our performance measurement and basically had put together this dashboard. And the methodology that he came up with for the performance measurements was so good that USDOT made it their template for the other agencies to follow. So I'm going to see if Cecilio is here and if he's able to unmute himself. Cecilio, you.
Thank you, Bob. Good afternoon, everybody. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Just like Bob mentioned, the study generated an incredible amount of information. We had about 1,200 participants at the very end. These are regular people that participated in the study, commuters, and they willingly so had the CV technology installed in their own vehicles. And as they traveled in the study area, the downtown area and the surroundings, just like Bob described, they generated a vast amount of information. And at the same time, because of their interaction, they allowed the testing of the efficacy of all the safety applications, with the goal ultimately of achieving some of the premises of this grant funded opportunity by USDOT, which was to see at a large scale if the CV technology would help in terms of increasing the safety and the mobility of the users. So what you have in here is a higher level dashboard visualization, the USDOT higher level management, specifically the Joint Program Office at the ITS office, were interested in following and tracking the progress of the pilot. One snapshot, seeing how the infrastructure was performing over time, both in vehicle and at the intersection level, where we had all these boxes, the so-called roadside units, receiving data and broadcasting data back to the vehicles as part of the deployment. We have collected the data over the course of 3-4 years, and this information is now becoming very valuable because it has provided a lot of insight since the deployment happened before the COVID and during the COVID and after the COVID, to have a fine-grained understanding of how basically travel has changed in response of shocks such as the pandemic. Next slide, please. The safety applications that Bob mentioned, the wrong way entry, the speed advisories along the reversible express lane system leading to the downtown Tampa, the vehicle-to-vehicle safety applications such as the forward collision warning, the intersection movement assist, and the pedestrian-to-infrastructure applications such as the pedestrian collision warning application at the courthouse, generated a vast amount of information. Overall, we had more than 20,000 warnings generated. Of course, this was at the same time a research endeavor. So one of the goals were also to provide feedback to the manufacturers of the technology in terms of potential improvements to the warning applications themselves. But what is really relevant at the very end is that the safety applications, they had a substantial impact in terms of preventing some of the crashes. Like, just as you see in the slide over here, over the course of the pilot, just the wrong way application was so relevant in terms of preventing 14 wrong way incursions into the reversible express lane system. And this is really of paramount importance in the downtown area, which is, as you all very well know, very complicated in terms of the layout of the intersections and the interactions between arterials and the limited access roadway system that we have. At the same time, just like Bob mentioned, the OEM involvement led to the deployment of the red light violation warning. This is very important. The way the red light violation warning works in the context of connected vehicle technology is the following. As drivers are approaching an intersection, the infrastructure, the connected vehicle infrastructure, is sending real-time information on the signal phase and timing of that specific intersection. So as the driver is approaching the intersection, if the light is about to turn red, you actually get two advisory. First, you get a countdown information. So you get to visualize on a human-machine interface how many seconds are left before either the light turns red or turns green. And in the case you are distracted, you're about to cross the light and the light is about to turn red, you get a warning. So in deploying that application, we were able to prevent 19 conflicting instances. That is, people driving through the intersection as the light was turning red. So this application really holds a lot of promises in terms of safety improvements. Next slide, please. Not only we collected data directly from the equipment, so the collection of observational data from the infrastructure and the vehicles, but also we surveyed through all the phases of the project the participants. We surveyed them at the very beginning when the installation happened on their vehicles, and then along the way during the deployment and at the very end of the deployment. As you can see, more than 2/3 of the participants were overall very satisfied in participating in the study. The biggest benefits that the participants perceived were in terms of improved safety and overall a perception of reduced stress as it relates to congestion. So the application, in a way, the exposure to the applications, that had an impact in terms of changing the perceptions about the technology itself. One aspect that is very important is about the privacy component of this technology. Bear in mind that you installed in a box in the vehicle, so there might be some concerns about, who's tracking me? Is the technology disclosing information about how I'm moving the traffic and so forth? At the very beginning of the study, not knowing much about the CV technology, the participants were a little bit concerned about the security and the privacy of the CV technology itself. But as they participated in the study, that level of concern went down drastically. And towards the end of the pilot, less than 30% of the users expressed some form of concern in terms of the privacy premises of connected vehicle technology. Next slide, please. Here, when we run the survey, we were able to layer it in terms of the different technology that we deployed in the pilot. We differentiated between the different manufacturers, the so-called OEMs, and the other technology, which was mostly aftermarket type of connected vehicle technology. But in general, the satisfaction level of the participants, those 2/3 that I mentioned earlier on, expressed a very high level of satisfaction, a little bit higher as it pertains to the equipment installed by the OEMs, simply because the OEMs, Toyota, Hyundai, had a different way of installing the technology their vehicles. They had a dedicated way, and Bob, you can expand upon how they were able to engage users, basically, and participants.
Yes, and one of the biggest benefits to this was with Honda. We actually worked with Brandon Honda, where their service center did the installations and actually was part of the process of keeping the technology going. So the people showed a very high trust level going to their dealer on this type of equipment as opposed to an aftermarket, which is what we did in the first part of the pilot. There's a couple of things that Cecilio touched on earlier that I'd like to bring with this. Was during COVID, when we were on lockdown and everything pretty much stopped in the downtown for a while. One of the things that was interesting was we were still seeing probably close to anywhere from 40 to 120 vehicles migrating their way to the downtown, even though the reversible lane segments were opened, just leaving downtown because of the lockout. So it was very interesting to see that people either A, needed to get here, Tampa General, police, essential services, or they had needs that they had to do that. And that was very telling to us that no matter what we do and how much we shut it down, people are going to go where they need to go and try to figure a way to get there. And we were able to document some of that or see that with the pilot, which was very interesting. And on the participant side, they were very the satisfaction rates, especially the stressful driving and making it safer, because the whole purpose of the connected vehicle pilot for us was to provide the drivers with the best information possible to make the best decisions possible. And because of the connected technology, we're able to pass that up and down the line to public transportation and the pedestrians. And that's the part that we liked on the infrastructure side. So seeing that it made their drives less stressful, they felt that it helped congestion and safety, showed that we can do it and we can make a difference in the corridor. Cecilio?
Thank you. Next slide, please. I think what is important to see here is that when the participants were asked to rank the effectiveness of the applications, the vast majority, they perceived that basically the system of warnings properly delivered in terms of the efficacy. Some, of course, of the participants expressed a small share of them expressed a little bit of dissatisfaction, but that's part of the research study, because the way we did the research is that at the very beginning, phase 1 and phase 3, we had an experimental design where we split the sample of participants in two. There were some people for which we were collecting data over time that had the HMI, the human machine interface, turned on. They could not see the warnings. So some of the percentages that you see in here they have an explanation, because some of the users actually they traveled, but they were not exposed to the warnings per design, per research experiment. Next slide, please. Here we broke down some of the concerns about the technology as it pertains to the functionality of the system. And as you can see, the vast majority of the concerns about the technology are related to false alerts. Bear in mind that you cannot completely eliminate false alert from this technology, and that applies also to in-vehicle technology. You know, the sensors that you have in your most recent version or models of the cars that every one of us has. You know, like for example, the forward collision warning in a car. For example, my wife has a Subaru model. She drives and she at times gets a forward collision warning, and that is a false alert. The technology is on the safe side, and you have to balance out false alert in there to factor in the safety aspects of these applications. So one of the aspects related to concerns are about the trust in the technology. Still a little bit of a concern in terms of the technology itself, the trusting of the technology. Actually, there's a correction I have to say in there in the last bullet when compared to the previous slides, because we said at the very beginning of the pilot, the concern about privacy was 46%, but it actually went down. This is the right number, to 12% at the very end of the participants in the study. So the concern about the privacy issue went down substantially at the very end of the participation. Next slide, please. This is a series of so-called box plots. Basically, we ask the users to rank the usefulness of the applications, and of course, there is a variability in terms of the responses from the users. So the boxes that you see in there, they are a way of capturing the information provided by the participants when ranking the usefulness of the applications. The top two applications in terms of usefulness that participants responded, these are the most useful applications, are wrong-way entry and wrong-way driving. Those are really two vehicle to infrastructure applications that were ranked as the top, and of course, not only by the users themselves, but in this case, by the grant recipients, the Tampa-Eastboro Expressway Authority. This is very coupled with the concerns about safety of the users that Bob laid out at the very beginning of this presentation. All the way to the right, there are two novel applications, the red light violation warning and the signal countdown. They're perceived as being useful, but not as much as the entire set of applications. And when we delved into the details of these responses, we figured out that some additional working is needed as it pertains to the functionality of the technology, the relationship between the vehicle technology and the infrastructure CV technology for the red light violation warning to seamlessly work in an urban area characterized by many intersections. So we gathered a lot of lessons learned here as part of the deployment.
Cecilia, just to add, I'd like to add for the group, the first four that you're looking at, wrong way entry, wrong way driver, we put together, but end of ramp deceleration, pedestrian collision warning, and IMA is basically a T-bone crash. These connected technology, how it differs from a lot of the technology you're seeing is it's dynamic. It's tracking it in time. If there's a collision that's going to happen, you'll get the warning. If it's not going to happen, you don't. These four are all V2I vehicle to infrastructure. These are the type of things that a road agency, a road operator can control. The other part of it that we like and what we're looking at is there are also aspects of transitioning from a limited access facility into a downtown urban area. So the end of ramp deceleration, the pedestrian collision warning, and the T-bone crash warnings are all ways for us to get information to drivers that they need to slow down. Pedestrians are coming into their area, that there's a vehicle coming that they may not be able to see from a cross street. Those three are really the crux of why Thea in this particular area is interested in connected technology. How do we make that transition zone from limited access, which serves a purpose of moving people in on the long to medium trips, into the to the urban area with the mixed mode and more of a pedestrian environment? And these are some tools that possibly could help go in the future. Cecilio?
Absolutely, because at the very end, it is the very same four applications that you described. They will likely be the part of the suite of applications as we move into the future. We start thinking more of automated vehicles and connected automated vehicles, the interactions between cars and say pedestrians or other modes. So the lessons learned that we gathered through the pilot will definitely prove useful for future deployments, but also to enrich the research in the realm of autonomous vehicles. Next slide, please. This is a little bit more layers of information as it pertains to the assessment of the different warnings. We captured a lot of user comments as it pertains to the usefulness of the warnings. So you can see, for example, the PCW and this is just a snapshot of comments from the respondents. We deployed the PCW, the pedestrian collision warning application, at the courthouse, and the reason why it was decided at the very beginning to deploy the PCW at the courthouse is because it is a crosswalk and there's no signalized intersection right there, and also because it is an area where you have users that are actually potential jurors going to the courthouse. They don't know the area very well. They find the readily available parking lot, the garage that is close to the crosswalk. They park there and they make and they rush through trying to get to the courthouse, and very often they end up jaywalking or crossing fast over that particular crosswalk. And so it was thought that could represent a very good use case, and it worked out that way. We faced quite a few challenges, like Bob said at the very beginning. The technology worked during phase one, the very beginning, phase one and phase two, using LiDAR technology. We subsequently switched to use thermal cameras to detect pedestrians, and we learned a lot of information from analyzing the data as it pertains to which technology might be more viable as it pertains to the safety of the pedestrians in the future. The other one is the SCA, which is the signal countdown application. That is an information type of application where you get to see on a device. In this case, the OEMs had a very cool transparent screen on the dashboard, and you could see these icons and numbers giving you how many seconds were left before either the light was going to turn green or red, and it was a very interesting feature in there. Next slide, please. So I'm going to leave this to Bob to conclude, because it's a very important as it pertains to the future of the CV pilot.
Okay. So what's next? Well, what we're looking at now is one of the things we came away with from the CV pilot was that the OEMs and the auto manufacturers, they work with us. They're very good on the collaboration. They were fantastic partners to work with. However, they have their own desires on their products and where they're going. So I came away with, how do we get enough technology into the corridor without having to rely on the auto manufacturers, which we don't know when we'll get a high enough saturation for them to actually work, and be able to put enough baseline technology and then use the additional information to complement it and make our data more laser focused, but at the same time, not rely on it. So we're looking at something like this. This is a transponder size connected technology piece that would have several of the V2I applications, such as wrong way entry, end of ramp deceleration, and pedestrian crash warning in there. And then at the same time, we're looking at future technology, speed harmonization. How do we tell speeds to drivers that would allow them to go at the most optimal rate, which we can increase more volume through the roadway without having to add, widen lanes, and do this with baseline information that we're able to generate and control using whatever other additional is out there. So that's where I'm looking at right now. THEA, we're collaborating right now with FDOT, the University of Arizona, Michigan DOT, and Utah DOT, all on different aspects of emerging technologies. And we are looking at blending this going into the future on how do we turn it into something that also helps not only our safety, but our operations, and allows us to use the right of ways that we have already in place and not have to look into widenings of roadways. So that pretty much ends our presentation on this, and we are open here for questions, and look forward to answering anything you have to ask.
Any burning questions? No? We can certainly follow up if there are any additional questions that we might have. But thank you for that update. That was very helpful. Lots of really good information. Glad our community participated. It's good.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you, Bob. Okay. Our next presentation is from Hillsborough County Traffic Emergency Management Initiatives by Brian Zayas.
So good afternoon, Brian Zayas with Hillsborough County. And we're presenting today on the emergency management initiatives that we have for the Traffic Operations and Management Center. So we're going to cover the initiatives and how they are related to emergency management. But at the end of the presentation, we're going to show some live data, some applications. So what are the goals for emergency management for the county? Is basically to respond to all emergencies that impact the traffic, infrastructure, and the operations, and to perform pre-event and post-event preparation and assessments of all our assets. The way we do this is by providing administration and technical assistance, engineering, and inspections, assessments, and also to do emergency repair of any damaged infrastructure. The team that we put together is basically twofold. We have the TSD side, which is led by Bob Campbell. Includes the TMC staff, which is where I work with, and the TTC permits staff. And then we have the TMD team led by Kyle Fisher. And Bob are here with me today supporting me. In case I say something wrong, yeah, help me. And that includes the signal shop, the TTC staff, site shop, warehouse, admin staff, and project coordination, marketing too. Yeah, it's a big team. So just so we have an idea of the scope and size of what the county has to work with in terms of assets. Just today, we have 573 traffic signals. I think the latest one was it was started today, right? I think it was today or last week. Yes. And 343 of them are actually owned by the county. We still maintain and operate 230 that are LDOT signals. And in terms of signs, we have over 170,000 signs. And because of that, we have to fabricate and install 25,000 every year. And we keep around 5,000 of those on inventory. And these traffic signal cabinets, they are comprised of ITS equipment, network equipment, traffic controllers. And we also incorporate those systems with PTC cameras for monitoring. And this traffic system basically supports all the road users, which includes the motorists, fire and rescue, transportation, public transportation, pedestrians, bicycles. And the way we support all this is by using the ITS devices and our systems. Traditionally, the systems are on premises, which means that we have those servers and applications running at the county. But now we're actually shifting to cloud-based systems, which allow us to share data and the real-time information. We'll see some of that later. So the first initiative I'm going to talk about, we call it CVPP for Connected Vehicle Priority and Preemption. It's provided in the cloud, so this is why it says as a service. So it's CVPP AAS. And the main purpose of the project was to have a connected vehicle with the fire rescue emergency vehicles, to have them connected all the time to a system where they will use the information from our traffic signals and the GPS information to actually be able to respond better to emergencies. So the way they do this is basically by using that information on the GPS and our traffic signals to control the way that the vehicles are routed and more efficiently through the traffic signals. So instead of having to stop or use a manual, what do you call those? The manual preemption or switch of the signal, they actually have an automated system that use critical distance from the traffic signal between the vehicle and the signal to actually decide to do that. So the main purpose was to actually use the priority call, so the traffic coordination won't be as much affected by the use of the system, and whether permitted or not by the system, or otherwise use a preemption call that basically just makes that traffic signals go green, and then that'll deter the actual coordination a little bit more. So also the system provides with real-time location information from these vehicles, and we'll see that in real time in a while. And that actually what helps the cloud system to come up with the intelligence to determine that preemption. We're going to be installing that all across the county. And so far it's been 160 of those. We'll see the numbers real soon. The system also shares the information, the spat information from our traffic signals to the cloud, and then from the cloud to an application. So if you have the smartphone application, the travel safety application, now you get the spat information from the county. This is an overall architecture diagram for the project. So on the left side, we have the GPS information that the vehicle shares through a black box inside the vehicle. This is an LTE connected, cellular modem connected system on the vehicle to the cloud. And we also have a similar system, black box, on the traffic signals that are also connected to the cloud via LTE. And that actually feeds the spat data to any application any user has the application on their cell phones. That system, because it's an LTE-based system, also allows us to use the pass-through communication. So any one of those traffic signals that were traditionally off limits, they were too far from our traffic fiber communications infrastructure, now we can bring them online to the system. So that also helps with our ability now to react to any incident. So if we have to change the timing or any settings on traffic signals, we can now do it on those that were usually offline for us. Same information here. Right now, we have implemented phase 1 and phase 2 of that CVV project. We just started phase 3. The project is divided into 11 implementation areas. Let me show you the map here. So this is the first, the red zone down there at the south is the first phase that we implemented, and then we moved up to the one in purple. So that's how we go phase 2, and now we're doing phase 3. They're also using they're changing the implementation groups as the project moves along. So it's more of a as needed after phase 1 and 2. The other initiative we're talking about here is what we call the POEBs, the Power Outage Emergency Beacons. And what they are, they're basically solar-powered devices, beacons that they are related to, or they are designed to react to power outages. So any event, emergency, or any incident that takes the power out of the traffic signal, they do come with UPS systems, but those are basically depleted after 6 to 8 hours. So the idea with these is they immediately can become lit in the case of complete power loss. And then this is an immediate reaction other than we having to send crews to put any signs there temporarily. The project started after Hurricane Irma back in 2017, and that hurricane caused or affected 125 signals, and they were out of power. And even though all the signals were eventually everything was worked with and resolved within 5 days, I think it was, the county decided to plan ahead for next seasons and to come up with a solution to actually avoid this kind of situation. So that's how the project started. They wanted to have something that was actually easy to manage and service, and that would use components that were already available to the county. So they started researching, and finally they decided to use these solar powered beacons, which were found in schools. So basically the same type of equipment that the school beacons use. They were repurposed, redesigned to actually be lit when there's no power on the traffic signals. Originally, I think they cost around $10,000. Nowadays, it's probably $20,000 because the parts for these beacons are more expensive now. The first one was installed back in October 2018, Falkenberg Road, and now we have over 161 locations. These are done in phases as the funding permits. So currently, we expect to have probably the rest of the county signals installed with these beacons by 2025. But again, this may be a moving target depending on funding. So the EDDOT own beacons, I think EDDOT is looking into that too. Right now, we're not including them in this list. I don't know. Question, if I show the video, you guys will be able to hear it, or I don't know the sound though.
We can try it.
This video was made back in 2019. All right, what's that? You have to do it there, I guess.
Try to run it off here.
No, even I.
Oh. Is it still valuable? Is it still short?
No, I can
Only
show
a
it, it's
minute
not
and
gonna
20
sound though.
seconds. Do we need sound?
No.
It's just sound effects, so you probably see it.
You can hear it.
I can try to make it sound good.
Sound effects. Who's gonna do the emergency?
But it basically explain how they started.
What's funny is that's literally my office right behind it. I had no idea that was there.
I think you may have seen some of these. Sometimes we're installing them now in the mast arm. Sometimes you see like another, like an extra light, traffic signal.
I never knew what it was. That's
It hit 2020.
That's that old video. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the advantage of having the beacon is just to alert drivers that there is an
Yes.
intersection at this location when it's dark.
Yes, so the
I mean,
idea
it's
is that.
dark outside, but it's also dark, the signal's dark. You don't have.
No, so the signal normally going to flash when there's a problem with the signal,
Right.
right? So this will mimic that flash
Okay.
pattern. from the signal,
Right,
but it's just a different device because the signal is actually dark, no power to it.
right, okay. And then how long, oh, it's solar powered.
It's solar powered,
So
so
it will
they,
regenerate itself
they
through
run
the day,
indefinitely.
right? Gotcha.
So the system is designed in such a way that the solar panel is enough to charge the battery for full operation for the whole day. I mean, unless it's cloudy and dark every day, then
It won't be that dark. I mean, the solar can still charge, even if it's cloudy, maybe not as fast from the daylight. I know the city is looking at possibly doing this as well, so very interested.
right. So, and the third initiative is what we call the post-storm damage assessment. What this is we use the Survey 123 GIS system, and the survey was customized, so it will be available on the smartphones for the damage assessors, and it will be used to collect information after an event or an incident that damaged the roads or the signs, such as a hurricane or storm. And this is very useful because it brings the information immediately online. So instead of having somebody go to the field and have an assessment and then return with paperwork, and then you have to put that paperwork on a file, this will be immediately online. So let me show you the application here.
Did you develop this in-house?
It was only half by now. So this is what the assessor sees, and what we did is we listed all the traffic signals here, and we use a number. This is a number we use internally to list all of them. So once you click one of these, for example, the map will be updated with the actual location. And then this is already today's date and time. And this is just for the number of visits they're doing to every site. And the name of the person doing it, and he would just qualify the status of the signal in terms of operational or not. Flash or dark means no power to it. And more information about it. And also we included the information of the POEPs. So if a POEP is working, then they can select this. Once they're done, they submit that information. And this information then will be reflected here, real time. So this has many options for filtering and whatnot. I just pre-selected the last hurricane season. So these are actually real numbers. These were all the assessments that were done the past two hurricane events. And if I click on one of these ones, I can see the information that was actually obtained. This one was fully operational, for example. This one doesn't have a POEP. Find one POEP. This is McMullen Road and Bond Riverview. So that was also operational, and there's a POEP, but the POEP is not active because the signal actually operated. So this is how we get all the information and how we can react to the emergency and do the post assessment. Okay. We go back to the connected vehicle project. So we mentioned that we have the real-time information from the emergency vehicles. This is how we can see that. So I believe this is updated every hour, is it, William? Am I wrong? And these are actually the real locations and the routes of the emergency vehicles within the county. So if we click on one of these vehicles, we can see more information about them.
And the data is coming from the vehicles?
The data is coming from the vehicle, yes, from the onboard unit. And because now we're incorporating these, all these traffic signals into this cloud system, we also get telemetry. So for example, if I click on this guy here on this intersection, I can see whether or not there's power on that traffic signal and network status of it. And these are real-time information. And we also get SPAT data real-time that is then can be consumed by using the Travel Safely app. So if you go to travelsafetyapp.com, you can download the application for iPhone or for Android. Again, there's not a video here. I don't know if we want to see that, but it's not going to be. I don't know if we can do the sound. Okay. So here is how we can download the app. I don't have the app here within the computer because it's an Android based. Basically, it shows you these SPAT information. So if you're close to a traffic signal, it tells you it's going to go green, red, real time. So now every time we incorporate one of our traffic signals into the system, now it's also added to that application.
That's good. And that looked like, going back to the Thea presentation, that was one of the features that people liked, was the advanced notification.
Yes. And now
When
we're
the
going to have it.
signal's going to turn red, or even when you're sitting there, warn you when it's getting ready to turn green, won't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think you can, I was checking with the IT, you can actually share your computer audio when you're sharing the screen, and an option is still showing at your end.
Can we try?
I mean, when I give you the screen share,
Yeah, you have to exit again, do it again.
you have to do it again. Can you stop sharing your screen and I can give it again? No, you still have the control.
He doesn't want to give up. While she's
Are you
working,
getting another?
while she's working on that, I was at the Tampa Bay Smart Cities Alliance meeting last week, and Pasco County presented on some of the Survey 123 applications that they developed as well. So theirs included a citizen relationship and response, and it was interesting. So I guess Survey 123 from ArcGIS is being used, and they did theirs in-house as well. So it's being shown as a very good tool for people or for agencies in order to develop good communication, and very close. I mean, it's very quick, builds in a lot of efficiency. So it's really good to see. So Venkat said he was going to share his. Are you sharing yours? Your tool.
I guess we can. Yes, we're now requesting some modifications, changes based on the lessons learned from last hurricane season.
Right.
And we hope to have everything ready or most of it before the next season.
That's great.
Hopefully by the end of this month.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
We're in the process of exercising. Hurricane season starts June 1st.
Right. Yeah.
We're probably going to be planning, we're having our team meetings this month, and next month we're running exercises using this particular app. So
That's great. Yeah. Yeah, I know we are too. I know, I'm sure DOT is, so.
So I guess you can play the video. You have these slides, so you can probably play the
Yeah,
video
I
from
have
yours.
slides in there. But I'm not the presenter yet. You haven't given the control back to me.
Oh, no.
actually shows that you have a visitor.
Got it?
It's just a little slow.
Only way I can be around. Well,
Well, we're hooked up with the EOC too, so we'll get this information here, report the status of the infrastructure, different other stuff, stormwater pipes, and all that stuff. We have to recommend it to the EOC status. So they know in real time what the operations are throughout the county. It also goes to Kyle's team about emergency repairs and that kind of stuff.
Right. That's good. Do you only have your traffic signal team doing the assessments on which signals are dark? Or do you have not TP, Elkhart County Sheriff's Office or other people? You're doing it?
Yep, got teams trained,
Sweepers.
trained, got 2 people per car, one driving, one map, one something yeah.
Right.
yeah, it's TMD team. So how many people there in emergency management? People work.
With
All
the
of them.
traffic office.
45 from TMD side.
How many?
45.
Good.
I actually have a couple of questions if, so we can move it along, I don't know.
Yeah. Why don't we
We
get
had more slides, but I guess we can those questions. I mean, the video is really nice.
We
Yeah.
get the bulk of it?
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have the rights either.
Okay.
I don't know.
So Brian, I don't know if you know, were the people, how do you call them, peoples tested?
OX, yes.
OX, yeah. Were they tested with like how the traffic perceives them, or, you know, they know what to do? You know?
Have we done like a survey with
Not survey, actually. So I know that, like you said, they've been starting to install in 2018 or 19, right, first? And there was a few that were installed in some intersections. I wonder if there was actual people that, you know, you observe using them and make sure that, okay, they know what to do.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Original testing, cooperation with the FDOT.
Okay.
And we tested. Furkenberg original test, we had a test at night, and people expected, no, when it has to be in dark.
Okay.
Power conditions to test it. So we did test it before we proceeded with implementation.
Because I actually mentioned it last time, so I'm from Qatar, USF, right? So we had a project at the same time that you guys were doing that with the Turo DOT to basically power the whole intersection with a backup power system. And for about $20,000, you can actually power the whole intersection without needing to install new beacons. But the difference is that you have to buy new equipment, new batteries, like lithium batteries, just like backup a house kind of thing, right? Not traffic signal equipment that is approved at this point. And I know that they were looking into kind of basically approving that so that it's available. Now, I know that you guys have installed them out there, which is great. I just wanted to kind of put that out there too, because it could be an option coming up. So instead of having additional vehicles that they still, you know, they do the job, you could also have the option to just power the intersection on normal operation, right?
What is your power source?
Yeah, what-
But the battery, so they're just bigger batteries, lithium batteries, like I said, kind of like, you know, the backup power systems they have for houses. It's just a smaller scale because obviously the traffic cabinet doesn't need as much. So it's kind of similar, like City of Tampa had the solar intersection, right, project, and that was a little bit different because you had a lot of panels on the sidewalk. This one was full battery for about 3 days, and you could actually have solar as well and just continue on just like the vehicle, right?
Yeah, DOT has approached us.
Yeah, solar, yeah.
There's 3 locations
Yeah.
that the district traffic operations
Yeah,
is going to be testing this system. See how it works on state roads. Do that.
Okay.
They previously used generators and other things. We did too. We got rid of all the generators.
No, I know, yeah.
To test them every so much, you have to have fuel, get them trucks, haul the fuel in. And we didn't want to do that. We wanted a new way
Of
to
course.
do it. And that's the reason, that was the impetus to get this done this way. And we all over the world, trying to find different systems. We developed this ourselves. This is,
No, I know.
we've been approached by governments about what we're doing here, so they will use that.
I mean, like I said, it was a great solution for intermediary because DOT doesn't move very fast. So by the time they approve it and all that stuff, this works obviously. Yeah.
I do have a question. Excuse my ignorance, but why did you have to use a different signal? Was there no way to connect the solar power to like at least one of the lights, control it, just one?
It's a different type of connection, a
Okay,
different type of power requirement.
okay,
Okay, so there's just a lot more going on than just some power to a light. There's a lot of components that are continuously checking the health of the traffic signal, the cabinet. So it's not just, you can just not power just a piece of it, basically,
right,
which is what this does. This is a beacon that is being powered
by the
with the
light,
flash.
yeah.
Yes.
It's a simpler system.
Yeah,
Oh, the other question I had, I just remember, was for the CFLIA. So, looking at this on the regional level, actually, Margaret did mention Pasco County. I'm looking at this from a big picture, and I'm even the pilot. I'm worried that, everybody's doing their own applications. For example, I can have the CFLIA within Hillsborough County and use it, right? But if I drive to Pinellas, if I drive to Pasco, I'm not going to have that information, right? I wonder if there is a way to connect the county so that if something like this happens and it works, maybe we can make it so that, somebody travels, because we have a lot of people that travel between counties. We can provide this information seamlessly, right? Without now have to maybe do another app in Pinellas or in Pasco or even south, right? It's just a comment from usability kind of thing,
Well, the next level, well, I guess it could go in two different ways. So like DOT might be a good
Right.
Lead agency for that kind of collaboration, or it could be there's another, I thought it was a coalition maybe of a regional TPO, MPO group that included multiple POs, planning organizations, that might be another opportunity to bring some of those together, recognizing that, some within the region, there might be some outages because of the way the hurricane or the tropical storm or whatever came through. And so, they may have power and everything up there, and they're like, okay, yeah, we can come down and help you.
No, actually, I'm talking about, because as far as I understand, the Drive Safely provides the SPAN messages all the time, right?
Yes.
So it's used great. I'm just saying that somebody travels from to Pinellas.
Oh, like the SPAT, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, so we don't end up using different transponders, like, telling us.
I'm sorry.
The good news is
Yeah.
that our network communications are being coordinated by IATA. So that's a good news. So that means that when we move to sharing information in the future between different counties, the infrastructure is already based on something for the whole state. Okay. Now, there's also standards that are being developed, right? So it's a vehicle to everything standard, everything to everything now. So once we start moving into those new standards, and once this implementation starts to be planned, it will happen. It's just like you say, because some of the places are moving ahead, then they get the functionality, but not everybody.
Okay. So it's a good that at least the buy-in should be consistent.
Yes, because again, the network is coordinated by it.
Yeah, because they also have the regional data platform that I'm not clear when that's going to be launched. I know that they had to do an update. So that might be the place where that happens, that all that information is being shared and then it can be placed right there. So there is consistency. That's interesting.
Because if you look at it, people use either Google Maps or Apple Maps or Waze to try to navigate, right? So actually, those are private companies, so you can, but you could push the information even to them, then eventually they can display it. Because somebody has to have, how many apps are you going to have running on your one phone to be able to have this information and use them, That's all.
the video is up now and the volume is up.
It's a good question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, very good. Thank you.
You want me to play it still?
Be travel safely. And that helps you get where you're going safely. Travel safely works if you're driving, walking, biking, wheeling, scooting, or skating. Hear real-time audio notifications so you can focus on your surroundings. Get notified when you're approaching a red light or when it's time to get ready for green. Travel safely works with local emergency vehicles, helping them respond to calls faster. Get notified when an emergency vehicle is approaching, or when to share the road with a two-wheel drive. Travel safely tells you when you're passing a school or a work zone. You think you need to slow it down. So whether you're on the road or just crossing, every time you open Travel Safely, you're helping make a better community experience for all of us. Together. Download the Travel Safely app today and join our community of users committed to making our roads safer.
There you go. That's what we're doing.
Yeah. So I'm just going to say one more thing. So I know we're out of time, but when we did the pilot, especially the application that provided information for the lights, the manufacturers, the car manufacturers were very careful about not really wanting to share the green light, especially because then you can basically have situations where people speeding to pass it, or they jump the green because they know it's coming this many seconds. So I would be interested to see if there is any kind of increase in crashes because of people using the application, really just because those are the kind of things that they really deal with human factors in the vehicles. So just providing the information in an app by itself is not necessarily the best thing to do. This is my professional opinion, from research we've done. So we just have to be careful on, giving the information out there because some people are going to use them the wrong way, and then even the county might have liability issues at that point. So just keep that in mind. Yeah.
Can I ask a follow-up to that?
Yes.
So we've implemented, at the city, we're implementing leading pedestrian intervals. And our goal is at every location. And so that's a 3 to 5 second walk before anyone else goes. So is there anything that you've seen related to that?
No, in fact,
I see some behavior.
Right, so you could, people that understand and know about it might be able to take advantage of it and kind of, okay, I see the pedestrian going, therefore I expect in the next couple of seconds I'm going to be able to go. We haven't seen anything yet, but honestly, I don't think there's been a study. Carol has been involved in the LPI development to begin with, but I don't think DOT funded any study afterwards to kind of see any impacts because of it.
Okay.
So we don't know.
The other way around is you see the timer count down on the pedestrian. It's almost like is that the countdown for the red light too? And so people will speed up, voicing
Slow
that,
down.
right?
Yeah.
Speed up.
Well, in the early research for LPIs, it was showing because basically you're extending from the vehicle, you're extending the all red.
Right.
So there's a longer red period that the drivers are seeing. And so the crash modification factors coming out of that research, the total number of crashes at the intersections was going down.
Yeah.
So it had a very big effect on the safety on like right-angle crashes, but total crashes.
But people adjust.
They do. Well, yeah, that's sort of the challenge. We've sort of taught people that it's safe to run the red light because of our extension of the yellows and the all reds. But anyway, that's what happens. Yeah. Anyway, human behavior.
Yeah.
They adjust. Yes.
I had a quick question for Brian. Brian, are you guys working with a specific vendor to install the TSP devices? Are you guys working with
Yes, so this project was awarded to Temple AI.
Yeah, I was just asking because, you know, I got so many projects when they all mesh together. I know we're working on a project right now to send TSP data from our routers around the world, GPS data. I was just trying to see if it was the same project or something else. Yeah, I'll research and figure out where the template.
We're not really doing TSP right now.
Yeah.
Because the technology doesn't really allow us to do TSP and preemption.
Okay.
But that's the goal. The end goal is to kind of build it out to that we can do preemption.
Yeah.
You know, at a certain distance prior to the interception and not have to do, I'm sorry, we can do priority.
Yeah.
And not have to do preemption.
Yeah.
But mixing the two right now is really, it just doesn't jive together. When you're talking strictly emergency vehicle preemption. But yeah, that's part of that original plan. We were planning to bring you guys in.
Okay.
As a stakeholder. And that was, you know, prior to the surtax getting,
Right.
you know.
Yeah, so that's the end.
Right.
Yeah,
You know, but eventually we do want to build out and partner with HART.
Okay.
We do have a grant application in place to use TSP for Pittsburgh County Public School buses.
Okay.
You know, and to show a safety benefit from, you know, from that use case. So yeah, it's still in this infant stage right now, but we're planning to build it out along with some other things that we're doing, like actual RSUs at the location.
Yeah.
Because right now an application is not a V5.
Right.
But we want to build this out into a V2I. So we would have an actual RSU at these same locations.
Yeah.
That would, you know, that would disseminate data over multiple, you know, outlets.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
your Audi or your, you know, your BMW or your Toyota, or,
Right.
you know.
Cool.
Okay, thank you. Very good share of information. Really appreciate you guys being here, especially as we all prepare for hurricane season. So that was very helpful.
Yeah.
We have another presentation, but we're going to postpone that one until next month or next quarter for our next meeting. So old business, new business, we don't have anything listed. Does anyone have anything for the good of the order? Final comments? No? Okay, meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's the best part of the affair.
I know, you get to hit the gavel.
I'm not getting a second stuff, but move it still.
Yeah, we're actually,
Check here.
right now,
well,
our IT
Is it
department.
something?
So we're
No, I
building
just
this
want
out.
to be more clear.
Yeah, I'll find out more then. I can go ahead and send you an email or
Just a
something.
second.
I'm- yeah.
Yeah, okay.